Welcome to another episode of Honda Street Garage. Today we're going to be continuing on Project B20 Vtec. Let's see how far we can get. What's up guys, and welcome to another episode of Honda Street Garage. We're continuing the B20 Vtec build, and today before we really get started about showing you all the videos of what we did and how it went and things like that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the theory of why I did what I did and why I've chosen to make the choices I've made. A lot of people make comments about you have to use this, you have to do that, B20s are weak, they have this, they have that. And for the most part, some people are right, some people are wrong. Basically, I made the choice to go with a high compression B20B block from Japan. Anything that's 1999, 2000, or 2001 as far as the B20Bs go, practically a B20Z on the bottom end side. They have PHK pistons. It's a high compression block. So instead of purchasing another GSR block, I just decided to go with a B20 block because it was cheaper and it yields a little more power. A lot of people will say things like rod bolts are weak, doesn't really have the ability to handle all the horsepower or the revs, the RPM, things like that. Our drag car is a complete stock high compression B20 block with a GSR head, ARP head bolts, and that's it. And they put 12 pounds to that thing, if not more, and it runs steadily all day long. Over the years, I've built a lot of B20 Vtecs and LS Vtecs, and for the most part, they do really well. For my application, it's a daily driver, and I have retained the AC, but I have removed the power steering. The other thing is that I am using, obviously, the GSR head in this application with the GSR transmission. Pretty much it's all GSR except for the block. But one of the things that I did was I took the head to the machine shop. I had them mill it a 10,000th, but I also had them put new valve seals in. I used a high compression head gasket, so it adds another 0.4 to the compression. So it should be somewhere in the ballpark of 10.4, 10.6, 10.8, somewhere in there. Another thing that I did not use was ARP head bolts because of one specific reason. You don't need to unless you're boosting the engine or doing something crazy. This is a daily driver car. This is not, a race car. This is supposed to feel nice with a good bit of power. The GSR intake manifold is what referred to as a snail intake manifold. So it's basically two intake manifolds in one. A Type R / B16 intake manifold. It has very short runners, and that's for high RPM use. LS engines and B20s have the longer intake, and the GSR intake is a cross between that. And the reason why that is because it helps give it more low-end torque. So part of the reason why I've kept the GSR intake manifold in this application is because I'm going to be more focused in low RPMs and things like that. I really don't expect to be revving past 7,500, maybe 8,000. Another thing is that because it's an OBD2 car, I've had to convert to OBD1, so I did not swap it over to a crank sensor. I've deleted the crank sensor pretty much. So parts that I used was the GSR head, GSR timing belt, GSR water pump, GSR intake manifold, the GSR water pump water neck. I used that. But you also need to use a B20 head gasket, and for the most part you can use all the same things with the LS. If you have a B18B, it's pretty much the same other than the fact that you'll use a LS gasket, and I believe you can even use a GSR head gasket on a LS engine because it's 81 millimeter. So for the most part, that's what I've got going on. So let's check it out. Let's build this thing. We're going to remove the thermostat housing and water pump piping. It's just two 10 millimeter bolts off of the back of the B20. Should pop right out of here. Got a little gasket, a little tight. Just wiggle. Oh, and then you get completely soaked. We're also going to remove the water pump. So whenever you do a B20 Vtec, you need to make sure you use a GSR water pump and timing belt. You can use a B16 water pump, but you still need the GSR timing belt because the block is taller than a B16. Clean all the crud out. Brake cleaner's your friend. We're gonna go ahead and put the flywheel and clutch on from the old engine. It worked good, it didn't slip or anything like that, although the surface does look a little dodgy. Very important, you need to use the GSR or any manual flywheel bolts because the automatic ones are not long enough. Now we're gonna use the, go get the torque wrench and torque these down to the proper spec. We got a clutch disc. Put that on there. Trick is to find a little mark, a little pin here. Oh. Okay, now we need to put the, now we need to take this plug out so we can put the fitting in. I've already broke it loose. Takes a big Allen and clean it out as best as I can. A little bit of brake cleaner. Here is the fitting for the oil line. It should match. And yes, it does. What we're going to do is we're actually going to put Teflon tape on it. So that way it gives us a decent seal. You don't need a whole lot. Just enough. There we go. So we're going to kind of fit it in there. There we go. Check out this ghetto action right here. Boy. Thomas borrowed my tool when I asked for it back, and this is what he brought me back. Alright. That guy is in there. She's definitely secure. Now we're going to put the head on. I've got a Zerg Industries 84mm head gasket that is for high compression, so it's thinner than stock. Also, I have the step down dowel pins here and here on the back side. Now I'm going to go grab the head and put the head on. Now this can get a bit tricky, but the best thing to do is look through the holes, find the dowel pins, and drop it down. And our head is now on. Now we're going to have to put the head bolts in. I know everybody out there thinks I need to be running ARP head studs. That's a great upgrade, but for this application, I'm not planning on boosting it anytime soon or anything like that. The factory GSR head bolts will work just fine. There's a lot of debate out there whether or not they'll work properly. They're stretch bolts, yada yada yada. But in my experience, I've used stock GSR head bolts, Type R head bolts, and they work just fine, even used bolts. So if I have any issues, I'll put some ARP head bolts in this thing later on down the road. But honestly, for the cost of this build, I really couldn't justify spending the extra $130, $40, $50, whatever they cost. I'm going to take each head bolt, I'm going to make sure they're nice and clean, and I'm going to put oil on them and drop them down, one by one. Now, I've got actual regular oil in this bottle. It's a bottle of synchro mesh, but I've got actual oil in it. So before everybody starts commenting on the video like, what are you doing? I've got regular oil in it. So this is just going to be a daily driven motor, so unless I do something crazy in the future, I'll definitely swap out the Now of course there's a proper head bolt pattern here. Okay, so I have my torque specs here. You probably can't see that on the phone.
You can put it closer.
Just Google that. 2550 76.
Groundhog Day.
That's it.
That side? Work on cars, they say. It will be fun, they say.
Okay, so we got the head on. We've got the cams in, and we're gonna time up the motor after we put the cams in. But yeah, I just lost my rag. All right, so we're gonna start putting these pieces in. You can see there's a little number in there. I don't know if you can see it, but it says number 2, facing this way. This is always considered the front of the motor. So number 2, I could also tell because there's no dowel pin, there's one here. So we're just gonna kind of drop it right there. Same thing, number 4 with the arrow facing that way. Of course, number 3, arrow facing that way. So they're all facing that way. Get the cam centered up here. E1 and 2. E for exhaust, I for intake. That one's very easy to understand because the distributor goes there. Of course, all right. Now for the rails, wiggle all those bolts in there. Make sure these ones are on the inside. Use this one. We're just going to run these down and then use the torque wrench. Everybody's commenting right now saying how terrible that is. What are you doing? Oh my God. 20 foot-pounds on the 12 millimeter. Okay. Now, there's a little mark right here that should be lined up with a little mark right here. The camshafts should face up, and you should line these little tiny lines here up with the head. This one's a little off, so we're going to spin it. We're going to meet them up at the same time. Okay. See that little mark? Lines up with that. So they face up, and there's 2 little lines that should face, and they should be perfectly flat with the head as well. So now we're going to time this thing, and our tensioner should be loose. Now I have already gone ahead and put the 22 teeth water pump on. It's just a few 10 millimeter bolts. I've done this in other videos, the other B20 Vtec videos that I have. Now I'm going to take this timing belt and try to pay attention to how this works. So we're going to loop it around the bottom first. Okay, we're going to hold it on the crank first. We're going to go up to the exhaust cam. We're going to fit that belt right on there. Okay, then we're going to come across this way. There should be a little bit of sloppiness in there. And then we're going to peel this around. Okay. Okay, we're going to put it on the water pump, and then we're going to try to fit it onto this tensioner. There we go. Does everybody see what's going on here? All right, take a look, pay attention. It's barely hanging off here, it's barely hanging on here, and there's a bunch of slop right here. But what we're going to do is push the belt on in its place to everything. All right, now if you notice, we've got slop right here, okay? We've got slop all over the place. Now the proper way to do this is we are now going to take a wrench or a ratchet. We're going to turn the engine forward 2 or 3 teeth. Why does it look like it just doesn't? We're going to turn, there we go. We're going to turn the crank until it's lined up about 2 or 3 teeth off, right there. Now if you notice, all of the tension and slack has come out. It's on this side. So now what we're going to do is tighten the tensioner, and voila, your engine is timed. Now if you want to double check this, this is what you do. You go ahead and you rotate the motor over. It definitely has compression, we can hear it. I don't feel any valves hitting. So we're going to go around one more time and line up the marks. There we go. And I've got all the marks lined up. Yeah, and she is good. So now we have our timing belt fully timed and ready to go. Whiz this little bolt out. Now we're going to take the engine mount that was on the GSR, and we're going to place this on here now. Hand thread these in. The timing cover to cover up the bottom half. And voila. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use this. I have to trim it. This is the top half, the back of the timing cover. I'm going to keep this and try to trim this area down later. But right now, I'm just going to keep moving forward. I'm going to go ahead and get some bolts and put this on here. Okay, timing bolt. All right, now we're going to put a little cover on there. A little Woodruff key, which is very important. Fit that on there. I'm going to fit the pulley on there. And the crank bolt. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're at. We have the head on the block, clutch and flywheel. We have the transmission on. We have the alternator on. Now, the oil line. Now we ran a fitting here to the head with some Teflon tape. And then we did the same thing for this oil line, basically. It threads into where the oil pressure sending unit is. The oil pressure sending unit threads into the top. And then we have this line here that runs from the block to the head. So that's basically how it's going to run. It looks like it won't fit with the intake manifold, but I've checked it, it will clear. So pretty much intake manifold, valve cover, put the harness on, and it'll pretty much be ready to go into the car. Got our surface nice and clean. Put a gasket on, and now our intake manifolds. Now we've got to put all these 12mm bolts on, which is going to be the most fun ever. I'm putting on the air out of control valve. So one of the issues that kind of occurs, I forgot about this one, is that the fuel line usually is in the way of the oil line being able to connect. What we're going to do is, and I'll show you guys, don't lose that washer either. The line has these little grooves right here that it locks into, but what we're going to do is just spin it like this so that it is out of the way. So she should be good. There we go. Okay, now one of the issues we have is we're going to have to use the GSR water neck. We're going to have to switch this out for the GSR. Notice the difference? The main reason why that is because this hose that goes in between here and here gives clearance for the throttle body. Okay, so now I have the engine in the air, and while I had it in the air, I went ahead and lowered transmission brackets on. This is what everything kind of looks like. The positioning of that oil pressure sending unit is quite specific. So I think I'm going to throw the wire harness on the back before I drop it into here. Where it's floating decent enough, we're going to go ahead and fit the rear T-bracket in while we can still move it around, because it's tricky to get this guy in here, in or out, with a GSR engine in a GSR car. So as simple as it is, we've got the motor in here, as simple as it was. We've got the harness hooked up on this side, the harness hooked up on that side. Let's start putting things like the AC compressor on. Now I did leave the whole AC system connected, so I didn't have to discharge it. This battery's dead. Okay, well, that's great. Running out of film here. So I'm going to use throttle body gasket. Vtec or nothing. I think I heard it.
Yeah, I need more.
Oh. She runs. She's not knocking.